Imagine this. In the 1970s, bell-bottoms are in trend. Disco is the soundtrack of your life, and people are still trying to figure out how exactly to use their microwaves without blowing them up. In this golden age of, questionable fashion choices and technological experimentation, one very interesting idea rose from the chaotic smog of Houston's skyline. A daring idea so bold, so utterly impractical, that it would forever alter the course of architectural history. Drum rolls, introducing the Houston Tower. We're looking at a 500-story skyscraper conceived by the dreamy minds of Robert B. and Nat W. But before we get into the interesting details of this skyscraper, let's clarify one thing. This wasn't just another glass and steel tower attempting to make you feel tiny and insignificant from the moment you walked in through its fancy revolving doors. Oh no, my friend. This was a plan for a 500-story building. Yup, that's it. A plan that, had it been built, would have been the tallest building in the world. As you can see today, the tallest building in the world doesn't rise from Houston, which means the building really never made it to completion, or in this case, existence. Yes, we're talking about the skyscraper of skyscrapers, a colossal monument to ambition. And well, if you haven't guessed it yet, the 1970s. So what exactly was the grand vision that was being displayed here? Let's break it down. The brainchild behind this absurdity, or well, in other words I mean marvel, was none other than Robert B. Sobel, a simple American architect. Not so simple in the mind, that's for sure. Sobel had been thinking big for years, all the way back to 1947. And when I say thinking big, I mean really big. Think skyscrapers, but on a molecular level of scale. While it's great to dream big, the unaccomplishment of this one was bound to definitely hurt just as much. Sobel wasn't someone who wanted to live the average life. He wasn't content with just being another architect churning out office buildings or shopping malls. Oh no, he wanted to create a building that would make the Empire State Building look like a glorified coffee table. And more than getting himself some recognition, he was more focused on modernizing of America. He dreamt of a building so large, so preposterously massive, that even King Kong would need a map to navigate it. What was the concept again? A 500-story skyscraper made from 200-foot slided triangular tube bundled together like some sort of industrial-strength spaghetti. Imagine a skyscraper made out of 200 long-foot popsicle sticks. Only these sticks could probably kill you if you fell on your head. Yeah, that's the vibe we're talking about here. And oh, did I forget to mention the 16 city blocks? Yes, not one or two. He was talking about 16 of them. If the tower were constructed, it would stretch over 16 blocks of Houston like some sort of architectural octopus, claiming its territory like a real estate mogul at a yard sale. Now, let's talk some numbers. Let's be honest here, the numbers aren't why everyone is here in the first place. The tower was designed to stand at an awe-inspiring height of 2,000 feet, or around 610 meters. This would have made it not just the tallest building in the world, but also an engineering feat that would make even Elon Musk go, "Wait, what? Why didn't I think of this first?" And here is the kicker. It wasn't only about the height, it was more about having all the things. What things? You've got office spaces, residential apartments, hotels, shopping malls, you name it. It was supposed to be the vertical city of your wildest dreams. The kind of place where you could live, work, shop, and well, considering the architecture, never ever see sunlight again. Who needs fresh air when you've got 500 stories of air conditioning, right? No, just kidding. It was the kind of place that would have made the Burj Khalifa look like a pathetic little toy train trying to play on the railway track amongst the actual gigantic trains. But of course, like every dream that seems a little too good to be true and a little too much of a mountain to overcome, it came with its own set of problems. Like, for example, the very minor detail of how to actually build this thing without causing a global shortage of some sort of stuff the world works on like steel, concrete, and possibly oxygen. To make the tower a reality, the team would need the newest of materials, incredible construction techniques that were well out of this world, and maybe a couple of miracles from the one above us. But hey, who's counting the details when you're on the verge of turning Houston into the next Atlantis of the modern age? But before we go deeper into the unfortunate reality check that was bound to come, let's take a moment to appreciate just how bold and crazy this vision was. Because for all its wildness, there was a lot of logic behind it too. It was a test. Yup, that's better to use as a test at a giant skyscraper, am I right? But here is that. This was one of those tests where you think if you could pull off a giant, there is that what if that comes into play. If you could build this, you could prove that we were capable of anything. And for a long time, it was an idea that captured the imaginations of those who dreamt of human potential being pushed to its absolute limits. But more than potential being pushed, it was more of dreams being pushed. Off a cliff, we mean, alright, it's finally time to talk about the inevitable letdown. Spoiler alert, Houston's tower was never built. Not to mention a spoiler after everything we discussed. But why? Why did it only remain a long-lost dream? Well, because no one, not even in the 1970s, had the money, technology, or safety protocols to pull this off. Sure, they had great ideas, wonderful, grand, over-the-top ideas, but when it came to actually making those ideas a reality had to say something about it, and it wasn't anything positive. For one thing, how do you even maintain a 500-story building? How many elevators would you need? Would you have to hire an entire army of people to just get the windows cleaned? How would one possibly maintain the plumbing work of such a huge building? These were the small details that the towers of the world's imagination couldn't quite conquer. And let's not even begin to talk about the wind shear. A building that tall would have made you feel like you were living in a humongous wind tunnel. Good luck on your morning commute when the building starts swaying like a drunken giraffe. Well, there are not many drunken giraffes, but you get the point, don't you? And that's the thing, Sorbel's Houston Tower wasn't just about building big. It was about proving a point that with the right resources, humanity could totally push the boundaries of what was possible. But that didn't mean the project was viable. Who knows, maybe if someone dreamt the same today, it would have been possible in an instant to make it true. But I guess it was a vision seen too soon for those times. So what happened to the Houston Tower? Well, as you may have guessed, it never materialized. The dream died before it even got off the ground. But don't feel too bad about it, because this whole saga was actually a research project, a study into the feasibility of building a 500-story building. In hindsight, maybe it was just a very ambitious experiment that didn't quite land. Kind of like those disastrous TV plots that never made it past the first episode. You know, the ones where you're like, what are we even thinking? But hey, in the end, it didn't matter that the Houston Tower didn't actually make it into existence. What mattered more was the message it sent, that the world wasn't ready for a 500-story building. Maybe there is a possibility that we're still not, but who knows? Maybe in another 50 years when skyscrapers are built out of something like carbon fiber and ambitious dreams, we'll look back on this and think, well, they were onto something, we just didn't have the right kind of duct tape to make it happen. So here to the Houston Tower, an idea, though it may have never reached the stars, dared a dream about it. It may have not changed the Houston skyline, but it's sure to change how we think about the future of architecture, at least to a tiny extent. If any, it taught us that sometimes the biggest dreams are the ones that will be never built. Or, maybe just the ones that need a bit of fine-tuning. But we could still thank them for giving us something to laugh about in the 1970s. And isn't that what truly matters? Thanks, Houston Tower. We may not have needed you, but we're sure as heck the idea of you existed in the first place. Like what you see? Don't forget to hit that like button, share with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more incredible content. And if you are excited as we are about the future of aviation, you won't want to miss our next video as Hong Kong is transforming into a global aviation powerhouse. Stay tuned because it's going to be a game changer. See you there.